Hey guys, we're on our way to the faraway land of mysterious Exeter, New Hampshire. Alright, it might not be that mysterious and it might not be far away, but it's something I need to show you guys because it's a wonderful town and there's going to be a lot to unpack. Some tie-ins to videos that I've made before, like George Whitefield's The Last Sermon Site and other people in American history that I've talked about that will be tying into this awesome place that was the one-time capital of New Hampshire, and a lot of colonial history, pre-Revolutionary War history, Revolutionary War history, and even tie-ins to Abraham Lincoln. Let's go. Exeter, New Hampshire. This is a great place to come. Awesome spot for a day trip. Lots of museums, shops, restaurants, the famous Phillips Exeter Academy. I'm going to explain all of this to you as we go throughout the day here. So Exeter was founded in the 1630s by a guy named John Wheelwright. He had bought the land from the Abenaki who had this place before. Later on into the 18th century, it was ran by a couple prominent families, mainly the Gilmans, and this is their house right behind me, now a museum, part of the American Independence Museum. The American Independence Museum has an original copy of the Declaration of Independence and some copies of the Constitution. And here we have another historic home, part of the American Independence Museum. They have several of these buildings in town, a tavern and homes, museum. It is actually run in part with an organization near and dear to me. That is the Society of the Cincinnati. The Society of Cincinnati was formed after the Revolutionary War by founding fathers to honor those who served and fought in that war. They are headquarters now in the Anderson House in DuPont Circle in Washington, D.C. And they kind of help run some other sites throughout, but Anderson House is really their headquarters, and American Independence Museum is kind of loosely part of them. Like they help them out, but they definitely, I see differences in the way that they run things, and I always wonder about how that works. But yes, they have some kind of a partnership here in Exeter, and they do a big celebration every year. It's like a week or two after the 4th of July with fireworks, and they bring out one of their original copies of the Declaration of Independence to show. It's an original Dunlop broadside, so that's pretty cool. And the Dunlop broadside means that it was one of the original broadsides printed by John Dunlop of Scotland, go Clan Dunlop, and they're the oldest copies of the deck, and so they're very precious. There's not many of them. They have it here in their storage, and they do bring it out once a year during the American Independence Festival. Now I've got my iced tea to keep me going here, guys. I'm gonna put it down for a second. Along with all the historic sites and stuff, there are some nice little shops and restaurants here. Now at the heart of Exeter is Phillips Exeter Academy, and that's where I am standing now. This was founded in 1781 by John and Elizabeth Phillips, and this is a very prestigious prep school. Their boarding students are also day students. A lot of them board, and when I say prestigious, I don't just mean hard to get into, I mean very, very, very expensive. So it's about $67,000 a year to come here, not including books. So these kids will go on to go to, Ivy League schools, and this place has a very, very, very good reputation academically. It's changed a lot through the years. In the early years, there was some squabbles over theological denominational differences, because this was a place where you could come, just like all of the Ivy League schools, you would study theology, and it was a classical education. That's of course changed now, but at the time there was a divide between the more Calvinist fraction of churches and the Unitarian fraction of churches, which Unitarianism has also changed and is not what it once was. These weren't Universalist Unitarian. The Unitarian Church back in of the 18th century was a little bit different. Nevertheless, it's kind of changed hands, gone back and forth denominationally. Now I think it's just, you know, secular. But nevertheless, people actually send their kids here from all over the world, and they have a very, very, very high academic standard, as well as a beautiful historic campus. So that's what we are taking a look at right now. Some very famous people have gone here, like President Franklin Pierce of New Hampshire, the only president born in New Hampshire. And let's see who else. Oh, Robert Todd Lincoln, President Lincoln and Mary Todd Lincoln's son. He went here. Also, in more recent history, Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook. What are they calling Facebook now? Meta CEO. Can't keep up with this crap. And yeah, so lots of people down the list. This school is also very hard to get into academically, and most of the students who do make it in are, you know, expected to be honor roll type students, very high GPAs. There's some heavy duty testing that goes into this, and quite the enrollment process, I've heard. So I also know that they compensate their teachers well. One rule is that you do, if you're a teacher here, you have to live on property, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, they're like a fixture in town. And you know, it's one of the most famous things about Exeter is the academy. Now, New England does love its boarding houses and academies. There's several of these. Most notable, there's one in Andover, Mass. that is well noted, and it's kind of like the sister to this school. There is an academy in St. Johnsbury, Vermont, a few other, oh, the famous one in Connecticut where Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis went to, and things like that. So it is kind of a thing. It's a very posh kind of, you know, New England thing to do, but they do produce some quality students and have very high academic expectations. So yeah, I just thought I'd show this to you guys. It's quite different from the high schools that I went to, I'll tell you that. Very, very different from my high schools. Now, along with the Exeter Academy and the American Independence Museum, there are some other beautiful buildings and historic sites. Some really nice architecture, houses from various eras. It's a really nice town. This is in southern New Hampshire. We're like an hour from Boston. And it's really another idyllic little community. Not so little, I guess there's like 16,000 people here. The place that we live is much smaller, but close by. So we kind of get the best of both worlds. But I guess you would say that this is the most sizable place close to where we live. And they have a nice hospital, facilities, things like that. So it's kind of like a more real place for New England, but it's still small, very walkable place to visit, and a place that we come to a lot just because of its close proximity and resources. So it'd be a great place to live. And you'll see some of these, like this is 1767, and it's probably for faculty. A lot of these, oh, I almost fell in a ditch. A lot of these are owned by the school and are used by the school for various purposes. Some of them are housing and things like that. So not too shabby at all. Most teachers, I think worldwide, would agree that they don't have digs quite like this. So a nice gig. Treasures everywhere. So you just have to look. This, my friends, is a Daniel Chester French sculpture. As in Daniel Chester French, that made the Lincoln Monument and the Minuteman statue at Concord Bridge in Concord, Mass, and so many others. And it's in this darling little park, kind of in the middle of the main drag. At the end of town. High level of detail too, with everything right down to his boots, gaiters, everything. Beautiful. My son, who's a military expert, telling me that that is a 1917 military pattern. That's what that uniform's called. and he would be your average everyday American infantryman in World War I. And here we have the stamp of the artist himself. And though he was raised in Concord, Mass. and is buried there, he was actually born here in Exeter. And I think that's part of why we are lucky enough to have this beautiful sculpture here. I mean, most towns don't have a Daniel Chester French. And I think it's super cool. French himself as an adult lived also in Stockbridge, Massachusetts, out in Western Mass, very close to Norman Rockwell, where the Norman Rockwell Museum is. We're members there and like to go there a lot. It's a really beautiful area. So next time we are there, that would be another fun thing to go take a look at. And the Concord Museum in Concord, Mass. also has a nice collection of Daniel Chester French's maquettes or models for his sculptures, along with information and artwork about him. And throughout New England you can find remnants of his handiwork. Like I said, he is buried at the Sleepy Hollow Cemetery in Concord, along with a lot of famous writers from the time. And his family was friends also with the Emersons, like Ralph Waldo Emerson. So lots of tie-ins and connections there again, so fun stuff. Inserting now a picture of his grave in Concord, Mass., along with some of the awesome sculptures I myself have taken pictures of across the country. Here is the Minuteman in Concord, of course the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., followed by the statue of John Harvard in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I've even got one here that I took of the Capitol State House in Lincoln, Nebraska. And then we've got Saratoga Springs, New York. Now, if you guys watched my Ipswich video, you will know the name Rev George Whitefield. And I showed you on that video also his home church in Newburyport, and I talked about his passing. Well, on September 30th, 1770, so 5 years before the Revolutionary War would even spike off, see this marker right here? George Whitefield gave his last sermon here in Exeter, New Hampshire. And if you look carefully here, you can see this marker tells us that this was where he preached his last sermon. Lord Jesus, I am weary of thy work, but not of it. Whitefield's last words, preached here that night, September 30th, 1770. He ended up preaching for 2 hours in bad weather. He was, aging and he was dying. I think he knew he was going to die. 2 hours of an incredible sermon delivered. He rode back to his home church in Newburyport, where he passed away later that night. Next to where Whitefield preached his last sermon, we have the home of Amos Tuck and the birthplace of Edward Tuck. Now, Amos Tuck was actually the founder of the Republican Party, or GOP / Grand Old Party. And a lot of people don't realize there are some other states that claim that the Republican Party was founded there, but really when you look at it, it was here in Exeter, New Hampshire. Amos Tuck was a close personal friend of Abraham Lincoln, and a lot of people also don't realize that in the 18th century, Exeter had a large black population, freed black men that worked here and had businesses. It was kind of always like this bastion of hope, and Amos Tuck was firmly anti-slavery and formed the party based upon those principles. And a little personal tie-in, I think I've told you guys before, in my Ipswich video I mentioned my husband's ancestor, a grandfather that was also friends with Abe Lincoln in Springfield, Illinois, and knew him before he was even president and helped kind of pop things off there, and had dined. We actually have, there's family letters between his grandparents and the Lincolns talking about coming to dinner and going to meetings and such. So that's the thing about history. Sometimes it just comes full circle in the coolest ways. And so Amos Tuck would go on to help Lincoln secure that nomination at the Republican convention. And they stayed friends and stayed involved. Tuck served the state for many, many years. And of course, we know about Lincoln's legacy. So pretty cool stuff. And if you guys are interested in coming to visit this at all, this, the Academy, the front side of it, and Whitefield's last sermon site is on Front Street in Exeter. There's a couple little offshoots, and then I'll take you back around to where we started and show you more. And walking around here, you can see just what a lovely area it is. I love this classic post office. So cool. This whole town is very like Mayberry-esque with a, you know, New England colonial twist, but has that small town vibe of charm. And I just remembered the other famous person that went to Exeter Academy, Daniel Webster. Can't forget him. There's also lots of nice little hidden kind of nooks and crannies in the form of parks, memorials and things to look at throughout. We just made a giant loop from Front to Court Street, and then going back around we will be on Main Street where we started. And wait till I show it to you during the holidays. They decorate beautiful for Christmas with the tree and lights, and people do really cool shop windows. There's the historic town hall. It's really neat in there. Been in there for a meeting. Oh yes, I need to tell you guys about how it was a revolutionary capital. From 1776 to 1784, right here, Exeter, New Hampshire was the temporary capital of New Hampshire. Things got too patriotic over in good old Portsmouth, so they moved it here for a while before it eventually went up to Concord, where it is to this day. But that's quite a while that this, you know, was the capital, the seat of government. And that's what would happen in the early days. If a place just got too patriotic on the anti-royalist side, they would just move on and the colonial government would move it. And then you had our new government facing off against their old English colonial government. And that's kind of the whole point, right? So that's how things kind of went back and forth until we got it. And, you know, we had a war over it. Things developed from there. So this kind of goes back to what I was talking about before in my other video about the powder alarm, and we've got to tie in with that too. Here, I got to show you guys. Oh, I'm excited. Okay, so the timeline. We've got Newcastle Island and the raid on the powder house there, right? Well, those guys stopped here too for a while to get gunpowder and moved on, and I'll show you that. All right, so here's, like I said, John Wheelwright. And Wheelwright was a Puritan minister. He was from the Massachusetts Bay Company, but he had bought this land from the Abenaki and came here and kind of built this place up to be what it is. And then, yeah, like I said, 1776 to 1784, it was the capital of this new place we're now calling New Hampshire, the state of New Hampshire, not the colony, you guys. We were getting things done, kicking butts and taking names and staking our claims. Oh, I did not mean for that to rhyme. Alright, so I just did a big loop basically and turned back around. I will show you the water and the powder house in a little bit, but this is kind of going back down Main Street. And Exeter's home to one of our favorite antique malls. The kid bought another guitar. He's walking around playing in the store. And they are called Water Street Marketplace. Awesome, awesome. Shout out to Exeter Music. They're gonna take the kid's guitar and kind of refurbish it for 25 bucks. They're gonna switch the strings because he's lefty. So I was like, you bought a righty guitar? His other guitars are for left-handed people. But it was the antique vintage piece and he got a good deal on it. And it's a solid acoustic and they're gonna work on it for him. 25 bucks seems like a good deal. And they've always been really nice whenever we've gone in there. So yeah, some great local businesses. That's one thing I really like to do is, you know, support and shop local. It's fun. It's good for the local economy, and why not, right? And another place I love here is the pet store. I always come in here and see if there's something special that the Springer Spaniels in my house might need. And Exeter is on the Exeter and Squamscott River. Now the Squamscott, it actually is tidal water, so the ocean nearby flows into it and meets up with the Exeter right here. Sometimes when we're here, you can actually see the Phillips Exeter Academy rowing team practicing. I don't see them out today, but it's kind of fun. And if you look down there, you see the American flag. That is the powder house. So we're gonna go over there next. Here is Exeter from the other side of the river. We drove down and around with a car, and here along the river to show you the the powder house. All right, so here is the 1771 powder house. It says that this site on the Squamscott River stands the storehouse for the town's powder used during the American Revolution and the War of 1812. Powder captured from the British at Newcastle was stored here and later used at Bunker Hill. See, like I said, so the powder alarm, Newcastle, Portsmouth, we got it. We took it, that was a success. And this is where we snuck it off and stored it. Very important because it was used at the Battle of Bunker Hill. And I am getting bit by bugs. Bad. That's what the shaky cam's about. But yeah, here it is, the original. A little treasure here along the banks of the river. And here you can see this trail does continue. You can do like a big loop over there, but it's hot and I don't have bug spray on and I'm getting absolutely attacked. So yeah, but I did want to show you guys. It's really pretty. And the view from over here is awesome. As I said, a beautiful historic town hall, but I wanted to actually bring you guys over here to show you something. So not only do they continue to hold events here, like I said, I myself have been to an event here. People come and do all kinds of things. There's political rallies and everything, but the history of that goes back to 1860 when the man himself, Mr. Abe Lincoln, came and delivered final of 4 speeches at this town hall. And that kind of goes back to his tie-in with Amos Talk and kind of the history of the party and the history of Exeter. So really cool stuff. Treasures everywhere in this little town. It's great. Talking to this really nice local gentleman sitting over on the bench, and he's a old-timer, born and raised here, and his family, he actually is related to the Gilmans and the Smarts, and he was telling me that they were originally from Wales. And I said, oh my gosh, this is another situation where a lot of things list them as being English. And he's like, oh no, we don't hear that in our family, we're Welsh. And I was like, yes, kind of like the whole David Thompson thing, the man who founded New Hampshire. Some of the signage says that he was British. Makes my head want to pop off. Nothing wrong with being British, but there should be the distinction that he was Scottish, because a lot of people get confused. He wasn't English, even though Scotland is part of Great Britain now. It's a whole thing. But yeah, it was a fun conversation. He was telling me about some of the changes he's seen in town and how he's related to the founders and stuff, and that's pretty cool. Okay, well, I think that I've showed you everything there is to show you today. Hope you guys learned something. Definitely recommend visiting Exeter, New Hampshire. Great little spot. I'm that history chick, and like Patrick Henry, I know no way of judging the future but by the past, of course. And I am judging the past, and I am saying that Abe Lincoln, giving his speech at the courthouse in Exeter, he was one of the good guys. I hope you guys had fun hanging out today. Do me a favor and hit those like buttons, share away, subscribe, so you can keep getting all the fun content and continue to hang out with me on these little adventures around little dabble of history. Take care. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. You guys remember earlier when I said that Exeter was like not, what did I say, exotic or something like that, or weird or mysterious? I forgot about the whole UFO sighting things here. This area actually has like a high concentration of alleged UFO sightings. And there's been several incidents, and because of that, they even have a festival in August. Not my vibe, but it's something. Even get your dog a Tom Brady jersey. Don't know why you would, but you can. And of course, I don't have bug spray on, but I do have SPF 1000 on. Just saying, I really believe in skincare and sun care. I do not like this rude sign. Is it a sign if it's on the ground? I don't like this rude message. It's not nice. And yes, I did bring back the hat. Listen, I didn't get this pale overnight. This is like thousands of years of ancestry to get me this shade of Peely Wally, okay? So I gotta protect the Peely Wally and all the thousands of years that it took to get me to this, so I wear the hat.